Shadows of Success. Harrison Blake surveyed Manhattan from his penthouse office. The city sprawled before him like a kingdom he'd conquered through sheer force of will. At 38, he'd built Titan Investments from the ground up, transforming it into a financial powerhouse that made even Wall Street veterans nervous. The Forbes profile on his desk named him among the 20 wealthiest Americans under 40. Validation that his singular focus on success had been the right choice. "Mr. Blake, your 4 o'clock appointment is here," his assistant's voice announced, through the intercom. "Send her in," Harrison replied, straightening his custom Tom Ford suit. Olivia Parker entered with the quiet confidence that had first drawn him to her 3 years ago. Her dark hair was pulled back in a sleek ponytail. Her eyes, a warm amber that once softened when they looked at him, now coolly professional. "I received your message," she said, remaining standing despite his gesture toward the chair. "I don't understand why this meeting couldn't happen with the Foundation's board present." Harrison moved around his desk, leaning against it. "I wanted to speak privately first. The Foundation means a lot to you." "It means everything," Olivia corrected. 2 years building a non-profit that actually helps underprivileged children access education. Real change, Harrison. Not just tax write-offs for the wealthy. And I've been its biggest supporter. "Until now," she said, finally sitting down. "You're pulling your funding." Harrison's jaw tightened. "The Foundation's politics have become complicated. My board is concerned about association with some of the more progressive initiatives." "Your board," Olivia repeated, a bitter smile crossing her lips. "Always hiding behind that shield when it's your decision, just like you hide behind work when things get too real between us." "This isn't about us," Harrison said sharply. "Isn't it? 3 years, Harrison. 3 years of my life waiting for you to realize there's more to existence than acquisitions and profit margins." Harrison felt something uncomfortable twist in his chest. "I've never misled you about my priorities." "No," she admitted. "You've been painfully clear, and I've been foolish enough to hope you might change. I don't need to change. I'm exactly where I want to be." The words came automatically, rehearsed defenses against vulnerability. Olivia stood, smoothing her skirt. "I'm pregnant, Harrison." The words hung in the air between them. Harrison felt as though the floor beneath him had vanished. "That's impossible." "We were careful," he finally managed. "Apparently not careful enough." Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled slightly. "I'm not asking for anything. I just thought you should know." Harrison's mind raced through calculations and contingencies, the way it did before making any major business decision. "If you need financial support, I don't want your money," she cut him off. "I wanted a partner, someone who understood that success without someone to share it with is just empty." She moved toward the door. "I'm leaving New York. The Foundation will continue without your funding. We've secured new partnerships." "Olivia, wait." Harrison stood, unused to feeling so off balance. "We should discuss this rationally. There are options." "Options?" She turned back, her eyes flashing. "This isn't a business problem to solve, Harrison. This is a child. Our child." "I'm not father material," he said flatly. "You know that." Olivia's face softened with something like pity. "No, I suppose you're not. Not as you are now." She placed her hand on the doorknob. "Goodbye, Harrison." After she left, Harrison poured himself 3 fingers of scotch and returned to the window. The city lights were coming on as dusk fell, countless lives playing out in apartments and offices across the skyline. For the first time, he wondered what it might be like to be part of something more intimate than a corporate empire. The thought unsettled him, so he dismissed it, just as he'd dismissed Olivia. By morning, his resolve had hardened. He'd send a generous but final settlement offer through his lawyers. Clean break, no complications. After all, Harrison Blake had built his fortune by never looking back, never second-guessing himself, and never letting emotions cloud his judgment. He'd never regretted a single decision that led to his success, and he was certain he never would. Empire of Emptiness. 5 years passed with the relentless momentum that defined Harrison Blake's life. His financial empire had nearly tripled in value, expanding across 3 continents with offices in London, Singapore, and Dubai. The penthouse on Fifth Avenue had been upgraded to a full-floor residence with views that made even seasoned real estate moguls envious. His garage housed vehicles worth more than most people's lifetime earnings, and his name appeared regularly in both financial, journals, and society pages. By all measurable metrics, Harrison Blake had won at life. Tonight, he stood alone in his expansive living room, tumbler of 30-year-old scotch in hand, staring at the glittering cityscape beyond his floor-to-ceiling windows. The charity gala he'd just left had been another success. $500,000 raised for veteran rehabilitation, excellent press coverage, and 3 potential business connections made. Yet he'd left early, unable to shake the hollow feeling that had become his constant companion. "Anything else you need tonight, Mr. Blake?" Winston, his house manager, appeared silently at his side. "No, that'll be all." Winston nodded and disappeared, as quietly as he'd arrived, leaving Harrison once again with only the soft hum of the climate control system for company. He moved to his study, activating the hidden panel that revealed his private collection of first-edition books, a passion he'd developed in recent years, though he rarely found time to read them. These quiet late-night hours had become increasingly common. Sleep eluded him more often than not, despite the Egyptian cotton sheets and custom mattress designed to his exact specifications. His phone buzzed with a text from Vanessa, the model he'd been seeing for the past 2 months, an invitation to join her at some club downtown. Harrison didn't respond. The thought of another evening of superficial conversation held no appeal. Next week, he'd likely end things with her, just as he had with Rebecca before her, and Stephanie before that. None of them had stirred anything beyond temporary distraction. None of them were Olivia. The thought ambushed him, as it occasionally did in these quiet moments. He'd made himself a promise never to look her up, never to check what had become of her or the child she'd been carrying. His lawyers had confirmed years ago that she'd never filed for support or made any claims against him. She'd kept her word about not wanting his money. Harrison's gaze fell on a business journal on his desk, open to an article about him. "The Man with the Midas Touch," the headline declared. The photograph showed him at a recent merger announcement, his expression confident, almost predatory. The article praised his unflinching decisiveness and singular focus, traits that had made him billions, traits that had also left him utterly alone. His assistant had tentatively suggested therapy last month after finding him working at 3 in the morning for the 5th night in a row. He'd dismissed the idea immediately. What would he even say? "I have everything I ever wanted, and it feels like nothing at all." The doorbell rang, surprising him. It was nearly midnight. Winston had gone home, so Harrison moved to answer it, himself checking the security camera on his phone first. James Harrington, his childhood friend and the only person who still spoke to him without an agenda, stood at his door looking disheveled. "James?" Harrison opened the door. "It's midnight. What are you doing here?" James pushed past him, his eyes red-rimmed. "Miranda left. Took the kids to her mother's in Connecticut." Harrison led him to the living room. "I'm sorry to hear that." "Drink? Please." James collapsed onto the sofa. "God, Harrison, I really screwed up this time. Missed Emily's recital for the 3rd time because of work. Miranda said she's done with my promises." Harrison handed him a glass. "She'll come around. She always does." Not this time. James shook his head. I saw it in her eyes. 20 years of marriage, and I've taken her for granted the entire time. He looked up at Harrison. You were the smart one, you know. Never getting attached. Never having to worry about disappointing anyone but shareholders. Harrison's mouth twisted in an ironic smile. Yes. Lucky me. James didn't catch the sarcasm. You can sleep at night knowing exactly who you are. Me? I'm a failure as a husband and father. You're the executive of a Fortune 500 company, which means nothing if I've lost my family. James drained his glass. Emily asked her mother why I don't love them enough to show up. How do you come back from that? Harrison had no answer. He refilled James's glass and listened as his friend talked about the family life he'd neglected. About Emily's talent for piano and Thomas's baseball games. About the way Miranda still left notes in his lunch despite her growing resentment. When James finally left, headed for a hotel rather than his empty house, Harrison remained on the sofa, turning their conversation over in his mind. He tried to imagine what his life might have been like if he'd made different choices with Olivia. If somewhere across town, a child with his eyes was playing piano or baseball. If someone left notes in his lunch. The thoughts were so foreign. They almost seemed to belong to someone else's life. His phone rang. His COO calling from Tokyo, where a major deal was unraveling. Harrison answered immediately, grateful for the distraction of a crisis he knew exactly how to handle. By sunrise, he'd stabilized the situation, fired 2 executives, and arranged an emergency flight to Japan. This was the world he understood, the world he'd chosen. And if it sometimes felt like an empire built on sand, vast, impressive, and fundamentally empty, that was the price of success. A price Harrison Blake told himself he was still willing to pay. Unexpected reunion. The Metropolitan Museum of Art glowed against the September evening sky as limousines and luxury cars delivered. New York's elite to the annual Children's Education Foundation Gala. Harrison adjusted his bow tie as his driver opened the door. These events had become routine. Write a substantial check, shake the right hands, maintain the carefully crafted image of Harrison Blake, philanthropist. Mr. Blake, over here! Photographers called his name as he ascended the steps. He offered his practiced smile, confident but not arrogant, successful but approachable, the smile that had graced countless magazine covers. Harrison, darling. Vivian Caldwell, the foundation's chairwoman, air-kissed both his cheeks. So glad you could make it. Your table is near the front, of course. Vivienne, he nodded politely. I'm impressed with the turnout. Wait until you see what we've accomplished this year. The foundation has expanded to 12 cities, and our scholarship program has tripled in size. She beamed, guiding him through the crowd. There's someone I'm dying for you to meet. The woman responsible for our incredible growth. Harrison followed, exchanging brief greetings with familiar faces. The Great Hall had been transformed into an elegant dining space, with crystal chandeliers, casting warm light over tables adorned with white orchids and blue hydrangeas. There she is, Vivian said, gesturing toward a small group near the bar. Our miracle worker. Harrison turned, and the world seemed to stop. Olivia Parker stood 20 feet away, more beautiful than he remembered. Her dark hair fell in soft waves past her shoulders, and she wore a midnight blue gown that accentuated her elegant figure. She was laughing at something someone had said, her head tilted back slightly, revealing the graceful line of her neck. Harrison couldn't move, couldn't breathe. In 5 years, he'd successfully avoided thinking about her for more than fleeting moments. Now, she was here, real and radiant. Harrison? Vivian prompted. Are you all right? Before he could respond, 2 children, a boy and a girl, perhaps 4 or 5 years old, ran up to Olivia. The girl tugged on her dress, saying something that made Olivia bend down to her level. Even from this distance, Harrison could see their features clearly, the boy's determined jawline, the girl's high cheekbones, his jawline, his cheekbones, his children. Twins, he whispered, more to himself than to Vivian. Yes, Olivia's children are adorable, aren't they? Absolute geniuses, too. The boy is already reading at a third-grade level. Vivian looked at him curiously. Do you know Olivia? Harrison forced himself to breathe. We've met. Before Vivian could question him further, Olivia looked up. Their eyes locked across the room. Her smile faltered, replaced by a look of shock that mirrored his own. Excuse me, Harrison said to Vivian, moving toward Olivia with legs that felt disconnected from his body. As he approached, an older woman, presumably their caretaker for the evening, ushered the children away. Olivia straightened, composing herself with visible effort. Harrison, she said when he reached her, her voice steady despite the color that had drained from her face. Olivia. Her name felt strange on his lips after so long. You look well. A flash of something, anger, disappointment, crossed her features. 5 years, and that's what you have to say? I didn't know you'd be here, he said lamely. Clearly. She glanced toward where the children had disappeared. I should go. Wait. He caught her elbow gently, then released it when she stiffened. Those children are mine. Yes. Her chin lifted slightly. And mine? The question felt surreal. Olivia's eyes hardened. Biologically, yes. In every way that matters, no. The words hit him like a physical blow. You never told me you were having twins. I want to meet them, he said finally. Olivia laughed, though there was no humor in it. Absolutely not. They don't know about you, and I intend to keep it that way. I have rights. Rights? Her eyes flashed dangerously. You forfeited any rights when you made it clear we weren't worth disrupting your precious life plan. I've spent 5 years building a world for them that's full of love and stability. I won't let you waltz in now that it's convenient for you. The dinner bell chimed, saving Harrison from having to respond. Olivia used the moment to step away. Enjoy your evening, Mr. Blake, she said formally. Your generous donation is appreciated. She walked away, her back straight, her head high. Harrison watched her go, feeling as though something vital had been torn from him, something he hadn't even known was his until this moment. Throughout dinner, he couldn't focus on the conversations around him. His eyes kept finding Olivia across the room and occasionally drifting to the children's table where Nathan and Evelyn sat with other donors' children. The boy, Nathan, had his serious expression, his way of furrowing his brow when concentrating. The girl, Evelyn, gestured animatedly as she spoke, her smile brightening her entire face. His children. The thought struck him again and again, each time with fresh impact. By the time the charity auction began, Harrison had made his decision. He would not walk away again. Whatever it took, however long it required, he would find a way to be part of their lives. The man who had built his fortune, never looking back, was now consumed by the need to reclaim what he'd carelessly discarded 5 years ago. Building bridges. Mr. Blake, I really don't think this is appropriate. Olivia's assistant, Rachel, stood firmly in the doorway of the Children's Education Foundation office. Harrison held up the bouquet of sunflowers. I just want 5 minutes of her time. Ms. Parker's schedule is fully booked today. Rachel crossed her arms, as it was yesterday and the day before that. It had been 3 weeks since the gala, 3 weeks of unanswered calls and rejected meeting requests. Harrison had never pursued anyone or anything with such determination, except perhaps his first major acquisition, the deal that put Titan Investments on the map. Then I'll wait, he said, settling into one of the reception area chairs. Rachel sighed. Mr. Blake, this is the third time this week. I understand you're used to getting what you want, but... The office door opened, and Olivia emerged with a group of corporate donors. She froze momentarily upon seeing Harrison, then smoothly continued her conversation, walking the visitors to the elevator. Only when the doors closed did she turn to him, her professional smile vanishing. "This has to stop," she said quietly. Harrison stood. "I just want to talk. We have nothing to discuss. We have 2 children to discuss." Olivia closed her eyes briefly. "Rachel, please reschedule my 2 o'clock. Give me 15 minutes. She led Harrison into her office, a warm, inviting space with children's artwork framed on the walls. He recognized drawings signed with wobbly versions of Nathan and Evelyn. "You have 5 minutes, Olivia said, remaining standing. "Use them wisely." Harrison set the flowers on her desk. "I want to meet them. Properly." "No." "Olivia? What exactly is your plan here, Harrison?" She leaned against her desk. "You suddenly discover you have children and now you want to play. Daddy? For how long? Until it interferes with a business deal? Until it gets complicated? I know I have no right to ask." "You're right. You don't." She ran a hand through her hair. "Do you have any idea how hard I've worked to give them stability? They're happy, Harrison. They're thriving. I'm not. Trying to disrupt their lives. That's exactly what you would be doing." She picked up a framed photo from her desk, the twins blowing out birthday candles. "When Nathan asked about his father last year, I told him his father couldn't be with us, but that we were loved enough without him. I've never lied to them, but I've protected them from feeling abandoned." The word struck Harrison like a physical blow. "I didn't know about them. Would it have made a difference?" Her eyes challenged him. 5 years ago, if I'd told you I was carrying twins, would you have changed your mind?" Harrison wanted to say yes, but the truth stuck in his throat. "I don't know," he admitted finally. "I was different then. And now you've magically transformed into father material?" Her skepticism was palpable. "I'm asking for a chance," he said quietly. "Just a chance to know them." Olivia studied him for a long moment. "Why? Really, Harrison? Why now? What changed?" It was a question he'd been asking himself for 3 weeks. "When I saw them at the gala, something shifted. I can't explain it properly, but I haven't been able to think about anything else since." "That's not enough," she said, but her tone had softened slightly. "I know." He took a risk and moved closer. "I have no blueprint for this, Olivia. I'm not claiming to suddenly be the perfect father, but they're part of me, and I want to be part of them." Olivia returned to her chair, the professional distance returning. "I need to think about this. Not for you, for them. Of course. If, and this is a monumental if, I agree to let you meet them, there would be conditions." "Anything," Harrison said immediately. "Don't make promises you can't keep." She looked at him sharply. "That's the first rule of parenting." The comment stung, but he nodded. "What would the conditions be?" "You'd meet them first as my friend. Nothing about being their father. Not until I'm convinced your interest isn't fleeting." Her gaze was unflinching. "You'd commit to regular, scheduled visits, not whenever it's convenient for you. If you miss one without a legitimate emergency, we're done." "I understand." "Do you?" She leaned forward. "Because these aren't business terms to be negotiated, Harrison. These are my children's hearts we're talking about." The gravity of what he was asking for finally hit him fully. "I won't disappoint them," he said, meaning it more than any promise he'd ever made. 2 days later, Harrison found himself sitting awkwardly on a bench in Central Park, watching Olivia approach with Nathan and Evelyn. He'd changed outfits 3 times that morning, finally settling on casual jeans and a sweater, clothes that might make him seem approachable to children. "Remember what I told you?" Olivia was saying to the twins. "This is my friend Harrison who wants to meet you." Nathan regarded Harrison suspiciously, while Evelyn smiled shyly. "Hello," Harrison said, his usual confidence nowhere to be found. "Do you like dinosaurs?" Nathan asked abruptly. Harrison blinked. Yes, I suppose I do." "Which one's your favorite?" Harrison's mind raced for an answer that might impress a 5-year-old. "Triceratops?" Nathan nodded approvingly. "Mine's Spinosaurus. It's the biggest carnivore ever." "Nathan knows everything about dinosaurs," Olivia explained, a hint of pride in her voice. "What about you, Evelyn?" Harrison asked gently. "What do you like?" "Stars," she said quietly. "And stories." "Evie wants to be an astronaut who writes books in space," Nathan informed him. "That sounds like an excellent plan," Harrison said seriously. The ice broken, they spent the afternoon exploring the park. Harrison found himself genuinely engaged in their conversations, fascinated by their personalities, Nathan's intense curiosity, Evelyn's dreamy imagination. By the time they stopped for ice cream, he had dinosaur facts memorized and had promised to bring a book about constellations next time. Next time. The words felt significant. As the children ran ahead to the playground, Olivia walked beside Harrison. "They like you," she said, surprise evident in her voice. "They're incredible," he replied honestly. "You've done an amazing job with them." Something in Olivia's expression softened. "This is just the beginning, Harrison. The real test is whether you'll still be here in a month, in 6 months, when the novelty wears off." Harrison watched as Evelyn waved excitedly for him to watch her go down the slide. "I'm not going anywhere," he said, and for the first time in his life, a commitment didn't feel like a constraint. It felt like freedom.